Let's bring up our first newsmaker on the program today, Sajad Lone, Minister in the government. Earlier, Sajad's contentious comments made in an interview on this program where he said only 5% of the valley was actually out there agitating on the streets had become a major talking point. Sajad Lone, our first newsmaker tonight. Sajad, first let me ask you how you look at the initiative of the all-party delegation, because this happened in 2010, but this time the fact that a few MPs broke away and tried to meet with the Hurriyat separately actually overshadowed everybody else. It became the story. So some would say it rendered the delegation onto the back burner and put all the attention on the individual MPs and the outreach with the Hurriyat.
No, I don't think that's the way I would look at it. Even if you look at 2010, the process was same. You know, there was no clear-cut program that they will go and meet the separatists or somebody else. It's a perfect copy of 2010, and the purpose of the visit is, of course, to come as a goodwill gesture, as a fact-finding mission. You know, getting to know from the stakeholders. This is an all-party delegation from the Parliament, which is the most supreme political body, and I think it's a very successful visit. They've come, met mainstream parties, gone on the roads, you know. Met some people outside those who don't accept the constitution. This is exactly what happened in 2010. I don't think anything wondrous was going to happen in this one day for such.
But the fact is that a lot of groups boycotted the delegation invites, a lot of the trade groups, even the Sikh minority groups. The separatists certainly did not show up. Some would say Mehbooba Mufti's invite went out too late. It went out literally on the eve of the arrival of the all-party delegation. Why do you think it went out so late?
Look, I'll tell you one thing. There are some nuances in Kashmiri politics which people don't understand. These separatists, who are our own people, do not, you know, recognize this government. They don't recognize anything. We got our letters from Divisional Commissioner. For them, it would have been an affront. So,
you're saying the other groups were invited by the Divisional Commissioner?
Yeah, that's the normal procedure. You know, from the Divisional Commissioner office or from the GAD, you get a letter. That's the normal procedure. You know, who else would invite you? That's how it happens. That's the administrative part of it. Now, thinking that they might think it's an affront, she comes down from the post of the Chief Minister, dons on the mantle of the President of her party, and explicitly tells us, writes it in the letter, that we have ideological differences. But for the sake of the people, it would be better if you meet these people.
So hang on, you're saying that when all these questions are raised, that she did not send a letter as J&K CM, you're actually saying that she was trying to accommodate the Hurriyat sentiments by not writing it as Chief Minister, or by the Divisional Commissioner?
Barkha, I'll tell you something. I think you all guys, girls, whatever, you're out to massacre her. Damned if she does it. Let me no. Please let me speak. Damned if she does it.
No, I think the
damned
if
she doesn't.
I think it was a very good move.
Did a very good move.
Why not as CM?
A very good move, right? I told you there are nuances in the. You know, she was trying to be smart. You can't penalize her and ask questions for being smart, for knowing exactly what she has to do. This is what she had to do, and she did it. Now, because people have little information about the sentiment within the separatist camp and the modalities that are to be followed there, they are trying to sort of raise questions for...
So explain it. You have been a separatist in an earlier avatar. You have known these people well. Your brother is still a separatist. You have attacked in the past when your father was assassinated, Syed Ali Shah Geelani. I remember that moment for actually being affiliated to forces who were responsible for his killing. I remember all of this. So let's first start with the fact that Mr. Geelani did not allow the MPs who came to meet him even inside the door. Pro-Pakistan slogans were raised, anti-Indian slogans were raised, and unlike the other separatists, they were sent away from the door. How do you see your finance minister's statement that this goes against the grain of Kashmiri culture?
I 100% vouch for this statement, endorse it. He's right. This is not how we behave. That is the societal aspect. Now
this is not how Kashmiris behave.
No, we don't. We don't.
Kyun? Because mehman aaye to bulana hai andar.
I'll tell you. This is a societal aspect, and I fully endorse it. And even I feel bad. I really feel bad. Now let's go to the political aspect. Now I'm talking here not as a minister, not as an MLA, but as a Kashmiri. They can have millions of arguments with me because I fight elections. But I'm a Kashmiri, I'm born here. I have a right. This is my homeland. Now, this is for last 25 years. Thousands have died. 70 have died today. Regrettable deaths. किसके लोग मर रहे हैं? गिलानी साहब के, वो तो बड़े लीडर हैं, वो अपने आप को बहुत बड़ा मानते हैं ना, उसके लोग मर रहे हैं. His people are dying. He should be worried. How to stop these killings? Because he says he is the leader. Then he should be worried. But I'll tell you, even when I was in the separatist camp, I used to tell them, and I'll repeat it today, strife, protests, whatever you call it, struggle, is a means to an end. The end has to be resolution in their context. Pak Azadi, Pakistan, whatever they want, that is the end. But you can't make strife, protests, sacrifices, killings an end in itself. लोग गिलानी साहब के लिए मर रहे हैं. Now we presume here that he is the big leader.
लोग गिलानी साहब के लिए मर रहे हैं कि लोग अपने मुद्दा, whether it's आजादी or demands for justice.
This is very fragile. Let me put it. Now Geelani Sahib is so strong that elected members who've come with franchise, lakhs of votes of Indian voters, they come with a great stature, and I hold them in great respect. They come to his door knocking. By not meeting them, their respect will not be diminished. Your cause will be diminished. What message are you sending? Is this the brooding leader whose people have been killed, who is not willing to talk to people who come on at his gate? अरे आप इनके पीछे जाइए कि हमसे बात करिए. आपके लोग मर रहे हैं ना, आप बोल रहे हैं मैं सबसे बड़ा लीडर हूं. अगर आप सबसे बड़े लीडर हैं, आपके बच्चे मर रहे हैं, आपको परेशान, you should be worried that I don't want my kids to be killed. I will go and talk to them. They are coming. What message are you showing to the whole world? Look, I'll tell you, there are three variables. One is in this context.
Are you saying that Sayyid Ali Shah Geelani is letting people die?
Just
because that's what you're saying.
Just let me.
No, are you saying that?
No, first let me. I will say what I'm saying. Then what you have to say, you say it after me. First, in this context is Delhi, Kashmiri people and their struggle. I'm using the parlance, the words that they use. And third is the separatist leadership. Now, first question, either India is too big, Delhi is too big a cruel power, which you can say in any context is the same. Are people sacrificing less, or is the leadership failing, is incapable, the separatist leadership, to convert these sacrifices into deliverance? I'm saying the people have suffered, struggled for too long. It's time for the separatist leadership to come up and deliver. They are not delivering.
Deliver what?
Deliver for the people, for resolution. You can't sit at home and say, Janab, you can't be a crybaby, कि साहब अब मेरे साथ ये हुआ, आपके लोग मर रहे हैं ना, go and do something about it. I'll tell you something.
You're calling the Hurriyat crybabies.
The number of people that have been killed in Kashmir is massive. You point fingers at Delhi, मुझे कोई problem नहीं. But today, as a Kashmiri, I'm pointing fingers at them. इतना sacrifice के बाद भी आप deliver नहीं कर पा रहे हो. You see, I have to go back after 6 years and seek people's mandate again. They will either reject me or accept me. They're there for 24, 25 years by default. न करेंगे, न किसी को करने देंगे. Today, as a Kashmiri, I ask, you know, what is your objective at the end of the day? You have to talk. By sitting indoors, asking people कि आप दुकानें भी बंद कर दो, do you really think that some power will walk away? Is he expecting that by sitting indoors, by not sending children to school, by not allowing the sick and needy to go to hospital, by not allowing Delhi villagers to go for work, since we are all in his perception, Delhi is something very bad. So he thinks that something very bad will walk away because we are sitting indoors. Is that what it is? Then let them explain. You have to talk. If you don't talk, nobody is going to go away.
What about policies of successive governments? I'm not talking only about BJP. It's BJP in power in Delhi now. Previously, it was Congress. You know, somebody we both know well, A.S. Dullat, he writes in his book that it's been a long practice of intelligence agencies to actually fund different kinds of groups here, everybody ranging from mainstream politics to separatists, right? Actually fund them, actually give financial incentives to keep them engaged. He says this is part of spook work everywhere. But there are others who will say कि आप ऐसा क्यों करते हैं? आप इनको engage करना चाहते हैं, आप इनको punish करना चाहते हैं. Nobody seems to be able to make up their mind. Let's take your government. You have sent letters of invite. But you have sent letters of invite while keeping them under arrest, which Umar Abdullah, Asaduddin Owaisi, Sitaram Yechuri have all said. Why have you arrested them on the day you sent them invites?
No, we have not arrested them on
why have you kept them under arrest?
Look, I'll tell you something. The state of arrest or not being in arrest hardly makes difference to someone who is the leader of a nation and wants to talk. You're doing it in a room. They have done it in the past. And if you look at conflicts all across the world, and these are simple talks, they've always been done in detentions. Kashmir is a part of world. World is not a part of Kashmir. There have been conflicts all across the world. And there have been confabulations. People have talked. Aisa, what's so earth-shattering about it? Ab Owaisi Saab bol rahe hain. Fine. But let Owaisi Saab read the conflicts all across the world. You know, somebody being in detention does not mean that he can't talk to someone. It has nothing to do with it. Ab Umar Abdullah Saab bol rahe hain. He's talking as if he has never put them in detention. I'm not saying we are doing a good thing or a bad thing. But the point is, if putting somebody in detention, the government feels that it will save precious lives, and they are not in some torture cells. Barka, I have seen torture. More than most of them who are there in jails. I was hanged upside down and beaten to pulp.
Right here in Srinagar?
Yes, in Srinagar. Not very far from here.
When you were a separatist?
Yeah, well, I was arrested in a certain raid. Aisa kuch nahi hai. I'm no chocolate boy. And now there is a chocolate boy saying why you have arrested them. It's not the game of Twitter. It's harsh reality. They're in much more comfortable circumstances than I was.
So you're saying Umar
When I
Abdullah
came back home,
the chocolate boy, Sajad Lone is not the chocolate boy.
And when I came back home, I had around 150 to 200 lice. You know, my hair was full of lice. My body was full of lice.
What were you accused of?
I was arrested in a raid. I was not accused of anything. You know, they picked me up when they picked up Yasin. I happened to be his friend and I was picked up along. It is 1990s. I was not even in politics at that time. I had just come back from Britain. I too had dreams at that time. You know, I had just come back and a month or 2 months later, I find myself being beaten to pulp, you know, being dragged, being hit. Aisa kuch nahi hai, humne bhi dekha hai. I have scars too, but I'm scared to show it to my children. I don't want them to end up with the same scars. Any child, whether it's my child or somebody else's child. So, aisa kuch nahi hai. Like, you know, I know Yasin has suffered a lot. I have seen him. He's been tortured. I know. But हमने गिलानी साहब को कोई torture देखी. मीरवाई साहब ने जिंदगी में कोई torture नहीं देखा. He's never been tortured. They have all been soft jails. So, making this whole issue about them being in jail, you know, creating a hysteria about it, there is nothing hysterical about it. We are all suffering.
What do you think they should have done when these MPs went to meet them?
They should have met them and told them what they want, whatever they want.
I mean, some of them did meet and they said,
but I'll tell you something.
हालात बातचीत के लिए
देखिए मेरी बात सुनिए. These are elected representatives of the Indian people. They were not from a particular party. They were not from the ruling party.
Yeah.
They could have made friends out of them. They could have made sympathizers out of them. They could have made advocates out of them. You can't advocate your cause by making enemies out of respected elected representatives.
Now, I want to talk about something you said to me in my last interview, and that became a huge controversy. And you said this is only 5% of the valley out on the street. Your comment was then reinforced by the Chief Minister, who also said the same thing. Later, she slightly differed from you and she said, what I mean is, only 5% are being violent, 95% want a peaceful resolution, whereas you actually think only 5% are represented in this protest.
You can play that tape.
Yes.
We were talking in the context of people getting killed, right? Then you asked me a question, is it a mass movement?
Yes.
And I said it's a relative definition.
Yes.
So,
do you stand by that statement?
I stand by the statement. Look, I will replicate it again. Yes, 5% are on the streets. When I talk on streets, we're talking of people who are pelting stones. And when we say the 95%, they could be for peaceful resolution. Some of them could say India, some of them could say Azadi. You know, the sweeping statement, it's not like I debunk Niji, sab iske saath hain or sab iske saath hain. But the reality is, even today, if you look at it, it is 5%, right? Or less than that, or maybe plus or minus 1%. And there are people who are at their homes, right? There are people like Geelani Saab in that 95%. You know.
How come you're including him in the 95%?
He wants resolution, but doesn't come out on the streets. You know. Or his sons want resolution, but they don't come out on the streets. Mirwai Saab wants resolution, but doesn't come out on the streets. So they are politicians, they are political people, they want a political resolution. Now there is some other band, you say Salahuddin Saab. He's there with a gun. I will not put him in the 95%. Right? Mehbooba ji, me, Drabu Saab, we are in the 95% band. Right? But 5% are those who come on the streets. All 100% is not pelting stones. You know, I got a lot of bad press and everybody was abusing me and whatever. And incidentally, most of the abuses were from people who are safely decked up somewhere in Dubai, somebody's in Saudi, somebody's in London. You know, it is, you get that vicarious pleasure out there. And it's not only here. If you look at the Tamil conflict, at a certain stage, the Sri Lankan government was willing to offer the Tamils the moon, the skies, everything. But the non-resident Tamils said, no way, it's everything or nothing. And, you know, I wish we don't end like that. But look at the Tamils today. They ended up with nothing.
But Sajad, some would say that more than convincing the people who've been tweeting you these hateful tweets, you have to first convince your own home. And I say this because another controversial statement that you made in that interview to me is you said nothing in Kashmir is spontaneous. But your wife, who I certainly believe has a right to her own opinion and she doesn't have to echo yours, very interesting Pakistani daughter of a Kashmiri separatist, writes in her own column that this is a totally spontaneous movement. It is run by dauntless youngsters and it has permeated areas in rural Kashmir that were never impacted before. So certainly, before you convince Barkha, you have to convince Asma.
I don't need to convince you or Asma. She is an adult, very well educated, bright, and is entitled to her own opinions. And one thing I would though tell you, that she has a loyalty factor. She is a Pakistani passport holder, apart from being my wife, and seems to be utterly loyal to her country, and I salute that. I think that could be emulated by our people also here, to be loyal to their own land before espousing loyalty for some other land. I won't add to it. But, you know, I am here on the ground. Asma was here when it started, but I didn't see her venturing out. So it's all on the basis of press reports. What she has got, I would certainly disagree with her. And I would stick to my statement that things do come across as spontaneous, but they are not. But then if you look at the overall article, the overall soul of the article, it is reconciliatory. It's more in terms of political in nature. It's more terms for engagement.
You building up on this 5% statement, and you're also saying now it's 5% who are on the streets and not being non-violent. Sajad, if this is really about 5%, why is it that we are looking at 58, 59 days now of turmoil? I'm not saying there's been continuous curfew, there's been some lifting here, certainly in Srinagar where we're sitting, but turmoil. The fact that elected representatives cannot go to their constituencies today, especially in rural Kashmir. You've had a PDP MP whose house has been burnt. You've had the divisional commissioner's office in South Kashmir actually burnt down. If this is only a minority that is violent, why is the state not being able to reassert complete control?
Look, I don't understand. I mean, say, this discourse that you're creating, violence is violence.
Of course.
And people like you and me...
I condemn violence totally.
Yeah. So, you see, you don't need more than 2% to get all this. See, a normal, typical trait of a common man is not to be violent. And I'm not saying that they might not have support. They might have support also. But the picture that you present, you know, to burn a house, I will come up and apologize to you when next time this MP fights elections. If he ends up with a 0, I'll come and apologize to you. But if he ends up losing or winning by 30 odd votes and polls around 20,000, 25,000 votes, then what would you tell me at that time?
I would say it's a contradiction of Kashmir, and you know that contradiction better than anybody else.
No, it's not a contradiction.
People will say we vote, but that don't confuse that with the larger issue.
Don't put a premium on stray incidents, however, or I would say incidents of violence, which have the power to intimidate and coerce. Don't put a premium on them.
I'm not.
And disregard thousands and thousands of people coming out and voting for some person. That voting was a reality and it needed, I think that person did lose by 30 votes, I think, and polled around 20,000 votes. That's a reality. Counted votes. How many were involved in burning that house? 100, 200, 500. Don't glorify it.
I think that's a fair point.
This is glorification. This is glorification.
No, there is no intended glorification. But let me, of course not. I think you make a good point that it doesn't take too many people to burn down a building, and that does not reflect the mass. But, and you know this better than me, there are things we're seeing today that we haven't seen for a long time in Kashmir. Armed militants at rallies. रुक गया, लेकिन बीच में हमने देखा. Pakistan flags. You've seen those pictures coming out of the hinterland.
I saw them since childhood.
But is scale pe?
Yeah, is scale. Oh, this is nothing. This is a pittance. I've seen it since them childhood. When I was in 12th, they put up a flag in Amerson College, जहाँ मैं पढ़ता था. You know, I've seen them since childhood. It was a tendency. As I told you, the historical ramifications of Kashmir conflict are being totally ignored. And it's as if we have invented in these 10-15 days. Look, we have seen 90s when nothing moved.
But
for
is
days.
this like the 90s?
No, it's not. It's not. It just is not. It's just that we have too many cameras today.
Are you blaming the media
No,
for
no,
this?
I'm not blaming the media, but I'm being very honest. That, say something happened in 90, how many cameras did you have? You had one camera. I
No,
think that
now
was
even
called,
if you didn't have cameras, where you have mobile phones, the pictures
yeah,
get
yeah,
out, right?
yeah.
But to complete my question, elected representatives being targeted, and what really upset me...
किसको target किया?
नहीं, जैसे घर नहीं मकता के घर पेट्रोल बम हुआ, PDP MP.
एक stray petrol bomb मारा, which one person can do it?
You don't think elected representatives are under siege today?
They are under siege since the last 26 years. So many of them have been killed. I have lost my own father. Does that mean that the people who killed them, they were popular? Are you telling me that?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Under siege from
whom? But are you
whom?
alarmed?
No,
are you alarmed?
Under siege from whom? I'm not alarmed because the state of security for us has been the same for the last 25 years.
What about Kashmiri policemen? And I did a story on this. Local Kashmiri policemen targeted. I met 2 officers or 3 officers in the hospital. They agreed to talk to me on condition that I did not reveal their identity. They don't carry their police ID cards when they travel from the villages to come to the city. They wear the uniform when they come here. And one of them said, and it was really heartbreaking to hear, कि हमें तो गाली और पत्थर खाने की आदत हो गई है. And you know, that demoralization in the police walking this thin line. कि लोग अपने भी नाराज, but uniform भी defend.
3 police officers make the whole police officer demoralization.
And when Mr Geelani named a police officer and held him responsible in Anantnag?
3 police officers talk to you. That doesn't sum up the
So
sentiment of the police.
Ajay, you tell me your assessment.
Well,
What is happening today?
I tell you something. Two sections, doctors and police.
Yes.
They're working day and night, and I'm sure you know they must be fatigued, tired, but. You know, on conditions of anonymity, 2 लोगों ने आपसे बात किया. That is the.
Do you believe the police is being targeted?
The police.
Or let me rephrase. Do you believe the police is vulnerable?
Look, I'll tell you one thing. From 90s, pre-90s, police officers have been killed. You know, police officers have been attacked. Their houses have been attacked. This is in a conflict situation. It's very bad, condemnable, and should be condemned. In a conflict situation, this is the rule, not the exception.
Let me ask you in the end, you know, one interesting point came up at the all-party delegation, and that was that there are many previous reports and proposals for a solution. Your own document on achievable nationhood, there's an autonomy resolution, there's the PDP on self-rule, there's the interlocutors report, there's the working groups. If Delhi, and Delhi can be anybody, Congress, BJP, anybody, if Delhi is not even ready to consider greater autonomy, how can they ever engage with the secessionists in the valley? Has the time come to start discussing autonomy? Greater autonomy.
I'll tell you something. Dialogue cannot be made hostage to conditions or unconditional.
But what do you think?
I'll tell you what I think. After Mrs Indira Gandhi, one of the most popular leaders to dawn on the Indian political scene is Mr Narendra Modi. If, with due respect to our separatists, if they can't strike a deal with him, they should stop wasting the time of the people.
That's a strong statement. We leave it there. Sajad Lone, pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.